You go first.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else noticed this at the time, but during the 6th generation, if a series managed to hit the 3rd entry, 9 times out of 10, whatever the 3rd game was, it was going to be the best game in that series, and that's no different for Timesplitters 3, aka Future Perfect. Timesplitters 1 was really just a demo, and Timesplitters 2 had a lot of cool ideas, and they did improve upon the formula, but had a lot of frustrating moments. And if you want to hear more about those, you could check out my reviews on the first 2 games. But if I'm being honest, if you just want to play one Timesplitters game, one game that will show you the potential of this series and how much fun it is, I'm going to tell you to play Timesplitters 3 because it's the best game in the whole franchise.
Yeah, it's time to split.
Right, whatever.
Before we continue with this review, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the hype button. I'm grateful to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ for bringing each and every one of you to my channel, as I know you guys could be doing anything right now, but you guys decided to watch little old me, and I know it's because of them. I hope you guys have a blessed and great day, and I hope you guys enjoy this review. Now let's get back into it. Future Perfect picks up where the second game left off. Cortez is headed back to his base to deliver the time crystals, and after fighting through the war that's going on the planet, he meets the General. Yes, his name is the General, he has no other name. He is tasked with a new mission, and that's for him to go back in time to stop the Timesplitters from ever existing. So Future Perfect is basically taking the same concept from Timesplitters 2 of having Cortez go back to different time periods, except for this time he still remains himself. He doesn't morph into a new person. But this does allow him to team up with some of the cast from the second game and even new characters. What I love about this story so much is that it's actually pretty humorous. A lot of games try to be funny, and I'm not going to sit here and say I was bust out laughing when playing Future Perfect, but at least it put a smile on my face and the jokes weren't cringe at all. Now some of these jokes might be considered outdated, but I grew up in this time period, so this just seems normal to me.
Damn it! Spaceman! Oh yeah.
A repeating joke, but actually plot point, is the fact that Cortez is constantly making time paradoxes. You will constantly meet different versions of Cortez, and you must complete the same task that Cortez did in order to keep the paradox from breaking. Writers have always struggled with time manipulation in stories, and if you pay close enough attention, I'm sure you could pick apart this game's story and say that a lot of things don't make sense. One of the earliest examples is the fact that Cortez hands himself a key. Now this key is behind this locked door, and the future version of Cortez hands his past version, which is the version you're controlling at the moment, the key to get in. So how did he get in there to begin with? And it's perfectly fair to pick the story apart because it doesn't make any sense. However, this is where context matters. The energy, the feel behind this story, the writing, you could tell the game isn't taking itself seriously, so you shouldn't either. Would you pick apart the writing in an Austin Powers movie? Probably not. And you shouldn't pick apart the writing in Timesplitters 3 because it's clearly telling you what it's trying to be. It just wants to be a fun story that keeps the player engaged until it ends, and that it does perfectly. No pun intended. There are even more serious moments that do happen every now and again, and those actually work well too because this game needed some balance when it came to its humor. This isn't in-your-face type of humor, but the game is clearly trying to be silly. Even Cortez has a catchphrase that he tries to get off plenty of times, and people let him know quickly that it's really lame and he should stop.
Hey, where you going, man? Time to split. Ouch! That's not cool, man.
So when serious moments come up, like when people die or when certain revelations come to pass, the overall silly tone allows these serious moments to hit harder. The first 2 games really didn't have a story. The first one didn't have one at all. The second one had, I guess you could call that a story. It had some cutscenes and it had a plot, but not really a story. This is the first time that Radical Design made a traditional story, and I have to say they did a really good job here. Now, gameplay is where things get a little bit odd. If you don't know, Radical Designs are originally ex-Rareware developers, so all their shooters kind of play like modern versions of GoldenEye. I despised that GoldenEye had a light gun-esque aiming system. And for whatever reason, they kept this aiming system for years, and I'm so glad that it's gone in Timesplitters Future Perfect. So now when you aim and shoot, the gun moves along with the camera, and there's no longer this awkwardness when trying to get in some precision aiming. In fact, the entire game feels more like a traditional modern shooter, even for today's standards. But that's where things get a little bit odd. One thing I always loved about Rareware shooters was the fact that they focused more on exploration. It wasn't so much about just going forward down corridors, shooting a bunch of bad guys, and maybe on occasion you did something on the side. They were more about exploring the map, completing different objectives, and depending upon the difficulty you played on, you got even more objectives to do. Unfortunately, they traded all that in for a more modern approach. I can appreciate the modern approach when it comes to the gunplay, but I really wish there was more to the story mode than just going forward, shooting a bunch of bad guys, and completing the main objective given. Are there side objectives? Yes, but they kind of just coincide with the main objective, and you don't even have to do them, and they're not all that important. Playing on harder difficulties don't give you more things to do. The overall mission is just harder. So even there, you're missing out on a unique aspect of what Rareware used to do. And I don't think they had to get rid of the exploration part of the game in order to give us the modern day shooter part of the game. I just think that they went so modern because you got to remember this game came out in 2005. So the biggest shooter on the market at the time was Halo 2. And this game is clearly inspired by Halo 2 because of how many third-person animations. Anytime you get into a vehicle, which vehicles are new for this series, get into a vehicle feels like Halo. Anytime the game transitioned to this third-person camera mode, then put you back in the first person, look exactly like Halo. Is that a bad thing? No, because if you're going to copy anybody, you better copy the best of the best at the time, and that was Halo. So I can't blame them for that. I just wish they didn't lose some of their identity in the process. There also might have been a bit of influence from Half-Life 2 because there's this odd gravity type weapon gadget thing that's barely ever used. You might forget it even exists in the game, but it's there and you can use it to pull different guns and health packets towards the character. And on occasion you have to use it for puzzles, but overall, it just seemed like they were trying to rip off Half-Life 2. It doesn't ruin the game. It's just kind of like an odd moment that I almost forgot about. So we no longer have multiple mission objectives in Timesplitters. Now it's more about just going forward and shooting up a bunch of bad guys. But I will say that they did keep some of that in there. There are a bunch of mini games where you have to move cranes around, flip a couple of switches. There was one time where I had to save this Amazon type woman and they told me not to blow her up. So I didn't know how to complete this objective. In my first playthrough, I just ignored it because I couldn't figure it out. And then the second time around, Jehovah God pointed out to me that I was supposed to shoot this barrel anyway, and she would just move back from it so she wouldn't get hit. So that was just a me assuming on my part. Other styles of gameplay like stealth, that wasn't all that big in Timesplitters 2, but there was the occasion where you could be stealthy, and they bring some of that back here as well. Again, it's not as important because in Timesplitters 2, I felt the moments where you're supposed to be stealthy, if you got caught, they sent so many bad guys at you that if you weren't good at the game, you were pretty much going to die or lose a significant amount of health. Here, I was supposed to be stealthy, messed up both times, and just shot my way through, and it was like nothing ever happened. So technically, there are no secondary objectives like that. They didn't make the game just completely shoot 'em up, bang, bang, because they made sure to keep each point in each mission fresh. For example, there's one mission where you're sneaking around a base. Then you have to play sniper for an NPC and give them cover. Then you go back to sneaking around the base, but you have to turn these certain valves, then shoot your way through the base. Again, this is all within, you could maybe argue 5 minutes of each other. Like, the game is really good at making sure you're never bored. They're always pushing you forward to doing something different in each stage. Like, there's even puzzles in this game that really had me just perplexed. I had to pray to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ to help me figure them out, because one of them is connected to basically a boss fight. And this puzzle was excellent, unlike that one puzzle from Timesplitters 2 that ruined my entire life. And to defend this new direction for the series, I have to say, I don't think it's really possible for Timesplitters to have kept the traditional Rareware design and give us all these cool set pieces. There's a whole mission where you're just having a gunfight with a helicopter on a moving train. A mission where you're storming an island where there's a war going all around you. They take you back to the future where you're fighting giant robots and shooting tanks. I just don't think the scope of this game would have been possible with the old design. So again, it does suck a little bit that this game just became every other shooter of the day. But at the same time, I can't lie and say that I don't prefer this overall compared to what we got in the past. The guns feel amazing. Now, it does kind of suck that guns don't really have that many unique secondary fire, but I'm so glad they got rid of the ricocheting bullets. I don't know why they decided to bring that in Timesplitters 2, but that sure got on my nerves there. There are way more boss fights this time around. Each of them have their own weak points, and the way you tackle each one of them is unique to each other. 1 minute you're fighting a tank where you have to hit it with an explosive from behind in order to do damage. Another has you fighting this mutant type thing where you have to dodge these laser beams on the floor. And you have to fight this giant demon that's underneath this mansion that's clearly supposed to be a spoof of Resident Evil. And that right there is just another reason why I love Timesplitters 3 so much. See, this boss fight is actually shown to the player in an earlier level, going back to that time paradox theming. Not only that, but the main villain of the game, you actually realize that Cortez is the one coming from the future that gave him all the plans in order to create the Timesplitters to begin with. Which explains why in the very first mission, which is supposed to be in an old time period before machine guns, there's actually a makeshift machine gun there. And they actually draw attention to this. And you figure out why, because as you play through the story, you realize that the main villain came from the future and basically created the best technology that they could because of all the information they had throughout time. All the pieces of Future Perfect just comes together to me in a way that the other Timesplitters games hinted to, but they never really executed. All the Timesplitters games seem to have a silly undertone and a lot of sexual theming, but they really didn't go anywhere with it because they were so focused on keeping that traditional Rareware design. Future Perfect just feels like everything they attempted to do in the past finally done right. And the best way to really drive home this point is, this is a big spoiler for the game's story, but I have to talk about it. In the very first mission of the game, as you're being escorted to the general, there's a guy that's in the background saving you constantly. Now, in the first mission, they show you who this guy is briefly. He kind of resembles Cortez, and I figured that it was him, but I really wasn't sure. Then you end up going back into the past or future or however which way you went, and you actually get to play as Cortez from that perspective. So yes, Cortez was saving himself in the past. In the future, it's confusing. Don't blame me for not getting it right. But he went back to the future from the past in order to save himself so that all the events of the game could take place, creating the time paradox in the first mission. And it's so cool because when you go back to this mission, you can actually see him fighting in the background. You can see what you were doing, technically what you were doing, in the background of the mission. And it's moments like this in gaming that I won't tend to forget. This was not a big plot reveal because, again, if they wouldn't have shown this like shadowy version of Cortez in the very first mission of the game, it would have been a bigger surprise. But the fact that they even did this was just so cool to me. This is really a moment I don't think I will ever forget. Anytime I think about Future Perfect, I will not forget this moment because it was just so freaking cool. And that has something to say about this game as a whole. For me to play this game for the very first time this year and to enjoy it as much as I did, it tells you how timeless this game is. I believe that this, unlike Timesplitters 1 and 2, is a game that anyone that's used to modern day shooters could easily pick up and play, have a blast, and enjoy from beginning to end when it comes to its single player campaign. There's so much stuff that I left out and I didn't show. Small little details that connect one character's world to another or one event to another. And again, if you're willing to go along for the ride, you'll enjoy the story. You'll enjoy all the set pieces. There was even like a moment in this game that was like, this game came out before BioShock, but it kind of reminded me of BioShock. I'm like, did they get inspired by Timesplitters 3? I don't know. The whole game is just good. That's one thing I could say. Unlike Timesplitters 2, which had a lot of bad moments in its campaign, this had zero. And unlike Timesplitters 1, which felt very bare bones, nothing about this feels bare bones. This is a quality production here. And you're getting what you're paying for, more than what you're paying for, because if you get this on PS5, you can get this for like $1 and some change. This is a great campaign that I can recommend anyone to play today. Now, it wouldn't be Time Splitters without extra game modes. The Arcade League is back, and unfortunately, it suffers from the same issue as before. The main issue is that this mode is perfectly fine. They throw you into a bunch of themed bot matches, which are actually fun when it comes to the concept, but the issue is that you have to play through the amateur league first in order to get to the more challenging leagues. And I'm sorry, these amateur leagues sometimes are so simplistic they can be boring. Every now and again, they throw you a unique challenge where even though the NPCs aren't putting much of a fight, just trying to find them around the map is a challenge. But after you get past those few missions, then it just becomes mindless bot fights. Once you move up in rank, that's when the real fun starts. And I can at least say the gunplay in Future Perfect is so good that I was willing to put up with it, but it should have been improved upon from the last game that tried this. There are also challenge modes. They're back again. These are fun like before. Again, you have to go through the more easier challenges to get to the harder ones. There are rewards. You unlock more characters, and there's characters from this game, the first game, the second game. They just really went all out with each character. There's a map editor from before. This is better than the second game's map editor, but it suffers from the fact that, well, unfortunately, like, you can't do nothing with this. You can make a map and play it locally. There's no online multiplayer, and you just stuck with a cool map that's on your console. If you got people that want to come over and try your map, dope. If not, this is just a relic of its time. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention this. This is one part about Timesplitters 3 that's pretty funny. I told you guys how Timesplitters 1, if you check out my review, which you should, link in the description, that game was so simplistic that it just felt like a game of capture the flag or whatever, and that was the end of the story mode. They literally have challenges in this game that is just the Timesplitters 1 design. They put you into a map, you shoot a bunch of bad guys, you get an object, you take it back to the base, and it ends. It's not as in-depth as the first game is, but it's so close that if they would have just put a little bit more effort into it, it could have just been Timesplitters 1.5. It was actually pretty fun. It's probably the best challenge in challenge mode, and I just thought that was hilarious, and I just wanted to bring it up how simplistic the first game was. Still a good game, but you could technically get that experience in Timesplitters 3. So Timesplitters 3 is the best game in the series, hands down. There was no frustrating moments. The game isn't bare bones like the first one. There really isn't anything negative I can't even think to say about Timesplitters 3. That's how good it was. I mean, there's some jokes in here that people may not like today. There's a character in this game that has some silly moments with Cortez.
Yeah, I haven't seen her before.
I'm sorry, sweetheart, we can't let you through. And believe me, you don't want to go.
Believe me, it would have been less painful if you hadn't called me sweetheart.
In fact, there's an infamous scene that I'm pretty sure everyone's seen. Like, even though I just played Timesplitters 3 for the first time, I seen this character in this scene plenty of times back in the day. And it definitely was a highlight for anyone that talked about Future Perfect.
You go first.
Okay.
But if I'm being fair, I don't have no problem with the way the character's dressing and how the character interacts because she doesn't really do anything odd. But her shirt has slut on it for no apparent reason. Now, I'm from the 90s. I don't know what the joke was here, other than, I guess, calling a woman that is funny to somebody. I didn't get it. If you could leave in the comment section if you're from a different standpoint of humor than me, please tell me what was the funny part about this. I'm not offended by it, but at the same time, if someone looks at this today and say, hey, what's up with that? I can't even tell you what the joke was because I don't get it. But either way, Timesplitters 3 was a great game. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the hype button. I'm grateful to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ for bringing each and every one of you to my channel, as I know you guys could be doing anything right now, but you guys decided to watch little old me, and I know it's because of them. I hope you all enjoyed this review, and let me know in the comments if you ever played Timesplitters 3 or if you plan on playing it after seeing this review. Peace out, keep gaming, God bless, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.